Victoria Sanchez ran her hands over her silk dress, smoothing out imaginary creases in front of the mirror in her bedroom. The apartment in downtown Phoenix was modest but neat, a place where two completely different lives intersected. On the desk by the window stood two monitors surrounded by website sketches and notes about client projects. Victoria earned a decent living as a web designer, but it was barely enough to cover her apartment, hormone therapy, and the ongoing medical expenses that were part of her transition. At 28, Victoria had learned to live in two worlds at once. During the day, she was simply Vicky, a talented designer who worked with small businesses and startups. In the evening, she became Victoria, an elegant escort who met wealthy men in the city's expensive hotels. Between these worlds existed a carefully guarded boundary that she never allowed herself to cross. Victoria's secret was deeper than just working as an escort. She was born in a man's body and had spent the last 8 years slowly and carefully becoming the woman she had always been inside. Hormone therapy had done its job. Her voice had softened, her figure had taken on feminine curves, and her face had lost its rough, masculine features. A minor plastic surgery 2 years ago completed the transformation. Now even she sometimes forgot about the boy she once was. But in the world of escort services, this information could be a death sentence. Victoria knew the stories of other girls who had suffered at the hands of clients who had learned the truth. So she created a flawless legend, Victoria Sanchez, the daughter of Mexican immigrants who grew up in Los Angeles and moved to Arizona to work in technology. A simple story, plausible and verifiable in its main points. Each meeting required careful preparation. Victoria studied clients' social media profiles, learning about their interests, family, and work. She never met with men under 35. Young men were too unpredictable. She preferred middle-aged, married men who had something to lose and weren't looking for a serious relationship. They paid for the illusion of intimacy, for the opportunity to feel desired without disrupting their stable lives. Today's client was new. Bruce Cole, 45, sales manager at one of Phoenix's major car dealerships. Married for 18 years, 2 teenage children. Judging by his photos on social media, he was a typical middle-class man who played golf on weekends and took his wife to country clubs for corporate parties. Men like him were the backbone of Victoria's client base. She put on pearl earrings, a gift from a client last year who considered their relationship to be more than just business. Victoria was a pro at creating the illusion of intimacy, making every man feel special, unique. But the boundaries always remained clear, even if her clients didn't understand that. The Ritz-Carlton Hotel in the city center was one of her favorite meeting places, prestigious enough to attract wealthy clients, but not so exclusive that the staff remembered faces. Victoria walked through the lobby with the confidence of a woman who has a right to be in such places. Her black Diane von Furstenberg dress, bought at an outlet store, looked expensive. Her makeup was flawless but not provocative, the image of a successful businesswoman meeting a colleague. Bruce Cole was waiting at the bar on the first floor. Victoria recognized him immediately, a broad-shouldered man with carefully styled hair, streaked with gray. His suit was high quality but not designer, his tie a conservative blue. On his left hand was a gold wedding ring, which he had not removed. Victoria noted this as a good sign. Men who do not hide their marital status are usually more honest in their expectations. "Mr. Cole?" Victoria approached him with a professional smile. "I'm Victoria." Bruce stood up, and she noticed a slight uncertainty in his movements. A novice. Men who regularly used escort services behaved differently, more relaxed, with pre-established rules of the game. Bruce, on the other hand, was clearly worried that someone might recognize him. "It's very nice to meet you," he said, his voice betraying his nervousness. "You are very beautiful." Victoria smiled softly. "Thank you. You look exactly like your photo." It was a lie. In the photo, Bruce looked younger and more confident. In person, he seemed tired, as if carrying an invisible burden on his shoulders. They went to the hotel restaurant. Bruce ordered whiskey, Victoria ordered white wine, which she had no intention of drinking. Alcohol dulled her alertness, and in her line of work, that was unacceptable. The first half hour was spent in standard conversation. Bruce talked about work, avoiding personal topics. Victoria skillfully steered the conversation, asked the right questions, and laughed in all the right places. "I've never done this before," Bruce admitted when the waiter brought the second whiskey. I understand," Victoria interrupted him gently. "Many of my clients are first-timers. There's no shame in that. Sometimes people need to be with someone who won't judge them." Bruce looked at her gratefully. "Exactly. Things are so complicated at home. Aubrey, my wife, and I are like we live in parallel universes. She's busy with school and the kids, and I'm busy with work. We stopped really talking about 5 years ago." Victoria nodded understandingly. She had heard similar stories dozens of times. Married men who were looking not only for physical intimacy, but also for the emotional connection they lacked at home. They came to her not only for sex, but also for the opportunity to feel interesting, desired, understood. 18 years of marriage, Bruce continued. "When we got married, I thought I knew who I would be at 45. A successful businessman, a good father, a reliable husband. And formally, I am all of those things. But inside, I feel empty. It's like I'm playing a role in a play that I don't like." Bruce's life was exactly as Victoria imagined it. A 2-story house in a respectable suburb, 2 cars in the garage, children in a good school. Aubrey taught elementary school and was considered one of the best teachers in the area. Their son was in high school and planning to go to college, and their daughter was the star of the school swim team. From the outside, the Kolov family looked perfect. Bruce regularly received sales awards, was a member of the Rotary Club, and participated in charity events. On Sundays, the whole family went to the Methodist church, where Aubrey sang in the choir. But behind this facade of prosperity lay a deep dissatisfaction. For the past few years, Bruce had felt like an actor who had forgotten his true feelings after playing a role for too long. His intimacy with Aubrey had become a formality. Quick kisses before bed, mechanical hugs on holidays. They discussed bills, weekend plans, and their children's successes, but never talked about their dreams, fears, or desires. Bruce began to notice other women, young saleswomen in stores, colleagues at corporate events, random passers-by on the street. At first, it scared him. He considered himself a decent family man, but the desire to feel something real was growing stronger. 2 months ago, while working late at the office, Bruce stumbled upon an advertisement for escort services on the internet. At first, he closed the page, feeling ashamed. But a few days later, he returned. Then again, and again. Victoria's photo attracted him not only with her beauty, but also with something indefinable in her gaze, a mixture of confidence and vulnerability that he recognized in himself. "You probably think I'm pathetic," Bruce said, finishing his whiskey. "Not at all," Victoria replied sincerely. "You're honest with yourself. That's rare. Most people live in denial until the end of their lives." When they went up to the room, Victoria sensed something unusual. Usually, her clients saw her as a beautiful object, a service they were purchasing. Bruce looked at her as a person. His touch was gentle, almost reverent. He asked if she was comfortable, if she liked what he was doing. After intimacy, they lay in silence, and Victoria broke one of her rules. She talked about herself. "I wasn't always an escort," she said quietly. "I have another job, web design, but the medical expenses are very high." Bruce didn't ask for details, for which she was grateful. Most clients either weren't interested in her life at all or asked questions that were too personal. Bruce just listened. "What about you? Have you always wanted to sell cars?" Victoria asked. Bruce laughed. "When I was 20, I wanted to be a journalist. I dreamed of writing about travel, exploring the world, but practicality won out. I got married early and had to support a family. Sales came easily. and the money was good. What are your dreams now? Bruce was silent for a long time. I don't know. I guess I just want to feel alive again. When Victoria was about to leave, Bruce asked, "Will I see you again?" She nodded, although she didn't usually promise regular meetings. Something about this tired man touched her. Perhaps she recognized a kindred spirit in him, a man who also lived in secrecy, who also sought acceptance. On the way home, Victoria thought about Bruce. He was unlike her other clients. He didn't have the aggression or possessiveness she sometimes noticed in the men who bought her time. He was lonely, just like her. And that was dangerous, because loneliness sought kinship, and kinship destroyed professional boundaries. 3 weeks later, Victoria caught herself checking her phone every half hour, waiting for a message from Bruce. It broke all her professional rules. She never waited for calls from clients, never thought about them between meetings. But Bruce was different. They met twice a week during those 3 weeks, always in different hotels, always at different times. Bruce was cautious, and Victoria appreciated that. He never called from home, always gave advance notice, always paid in cash. But most importantly, he talked to her. Not just small talk before intimacy, but real conversations about life, dreams, fears. "Tell me about your childhood," Bruce asked during their 5th meeting at a boutique hotel in Scottsdale. They were lying in bed, and Victoria felt the dangerous intimacy of the moment. "A normal childhood," she replied cautiously. "Los Angeles, school, college." Lying became more difficult with each meeting. Victoria's real childhood was spent in a small town in New Mexico, where she grew up as Victor Sanchez, the son of an oil company worker and a housewife. Her memories of that time were painful, years of not understanding who she really was, trying to live up to the expectations of her family and society. "What about web design? How did you get into that?" Here, Victoria could tell the truth. "I always loved art, but my parents thought it was impractical. Technology seemed like a compromise, creativity plus a stable income. It turned out I had a knack for it." Bruce nodded. "I understand. My parents also wanted me to choose something reliable. My father worked in a factory his whole life and dreamed that his son would rise above that. Journalism seemed like a whim to him." Victoria turned to him. "Do you regret it?" "Every day," Bruce admitted. "Especially when I read articles about places I've never been, about people I've never met. Sometimes at night I lie awake and imagine who I could have become." It was at moments like these that Victoria forgot that this was work. Bruce was opening up to her in a way he probably hadn't opened up to anyone in years, and she felt tempted to do the same. At home, the situation was becoming increasingly tense for Bruce. Aubrey noticed changes in his behavior. He was staying late at work more often, initiating conversations less often, and constantly checking his phone. 18 years of marriage had taught her to read his moods, and something had definitely changed. "You've been kind of distant lately," Aubrey said one evening as they washed the dishes after dinner. The children were doing their homework upstairs, and the kitchen was filled with the familiar quiet of marital routine. "Just a lot of work," Bruce replied, without looking up from his plate. "It's the end of the quarter. I have to finalize the plans." Aubrey studied his profile. She had known this man for almost half her life, had children with him, shared his bed for thousands of nights. Something was wrong. "Bruce, if there's a problem, we can talk about it. We've always been able to talk." It was a lie, and they both knew it. In recent years, their conversations had boiled down to discussing the logistics of family life, who would pick up the kids from school, when the parent-teacher conferences were scheduled, whether the fence needed to be painted. They had stopped sharing their feelings, dreams, and fears. Their marriage had become an efficient corporation for raising children and maintaining social status. "It's okay, Aubrey. Just tired." Aubrey nodded, but inside she felt a growing sense of unease. She had worked with children long enough to recognize a lie. Adults lied just as well as 7-year-olds, only more subtly. That night, after Bruce fell asleep, Aubrey lay awake staring at the ceiling. Their bedroom was decorated in the pastel colors she had chosen 10 years ago. Photos of family trips on the dresser, Bruce's sales books, and her teaching manuals on the nightstands. Everything was familiar, cozy, safe, and completely lifeless. When was the last time they made love? Aubrey tried to remember. A month ago? 2? It had become so rare and mechanical that she had stopped paying attention. Their intimacy had become a habit, like brushing her teeth or checking the locks before going to bed. Aubrey was an honest woman and acknowledged her share of responsibility for the cooling of their relationship. Working with children took a lot of emotional energy, and at home she wanted peace and predictability. Bruce seemed content with their measured life, but now something had changed, and it frightened her. At the same time, Bruce was awake 3 blocks away, in a room at the Hyatt Hotel, holding a phone with a photo of Victoria. It wasn't a professional photo from an escort service website, but a selfie she had sent him yesterday, smiling, without makeup, in a simple white t-shirt. "I can't stop thinking about you," he wrote to her. It was dangerous. He never wrote personal messages, only business arrangements for meetings. The reply came a few minutes later. "Me too." Those 2 words changed everything. They turned their relationship from business to personal, from safe to risky. The next morning, Victoria canceled a meeting with another client, a successful lawyer who paid well and never caused any problems. For the first time in 3 years of working as an escort, she put her emotions above money. Mark Rodriguez noticed the change in his friend's behavior. They had met 4 years ago at the bar where he worked, and Mark was the only person who knew both sides of Victoria's life. He had seen her transformation from the insecure Victor to the elegant Victoria, and had supported her through the most difficult moments. "You're in love," Mark said, pouring her coffee in his small apartment on Sunday morning. They had been having breakfast together every weekend for 2 years, one of the few constants in Victoria's unstable life. "Don't be silly," Victoria dismissed, but the blush on her cheeks gave her away. "Vicky, I know you. You're glowing like a Christmas tree. Who is he?" Victoria hesitated. Mark was her best friend, but telling him about Bruce meant admitting something she barely dared admit to herself. "A client," she said finally. Mark's face darkened. "Vicky, no, you know where this leads. Rule number 1. "I know all the rules," Victoria interrupted him. "But he's different, Mark. He doesn't treat me like a thing. He sees me as a person." They all say that at first, and then they become possessive, jealous, aggressive. You saw what happened to Angela. Angela was another escort who fell in love with a client 2 years ago. It ended with broken ribs and death threats when the man found out he wasn't the only one. "Bruce isn't like that," Victoria insisted. "How do you know? How long have you known him? A month? You don't know what he's capable of when his illusions are shattered." Mark was right, and Victoria knew it. But when Bruce sent her a message an hour after breakfast, "I miss you. When will I see you?" she replied immediately. "Tonight?" Their meeting that evening was different, less theatrical, more sincere. Bruce brought her a book, a collection of travel stories that he wanted to read himself. "I thought you might like it," he said shyly. "If you don't like that genre." "I love traveling," Victoria replied truthfully. As a child, she had dreamed of exotic countries where she could become anyone she wanted, where no one would know her past. After intimacy, they lay there and discussed the stories in the book. Bruce talked about places he would like to visit, and Victoria imagined what it would be like if they traveled together. A dangerous fantasy for a woman in her position. "What if we had met under different circumstances?" Bruce asked suddenly. Victoria froze. "What do you mean?" "Well, if I were free, if you weren't, if we had just met in a cafe or a bookstore, like normal people." Victoria's heart sank. If they had met like ordinary people, Bruce would never have noticed her. Or worse, he would have noticed her, then learned the truth and recoiled in disgust. "But we met the way we met," she said cautiously. "Yes," Bruce agreed, "and I don't regret it. For the first time in years, I feel alive." These words filled Victoria with both happiness and horror. Happiness because she felt the same way. Horror because she understood that their relationship was heading for disaster. Sooner or later, the truth would come out. And then this gentle, vulnerable man, who had made her believe in the possibility of true intimacy, would turn into her worst nightmare. But that night, lying in his arms and listening to his steady breathing, Victoria allowed herself to dream of the impossible. Of a life where they could be together openly. A world where her past would not matter. After a month of regular meetings, Bruce broke one of the rules for the first time and came to her home. Victoria panicked when she saw him at her door on Saturday evening. There were things in the apartment that could give away her secret. Old photographs, medical records, letters from doctors. "I couldn't not come," Bruce said. "I told Aubrey I had a meeting with clients. I wanted to see where you live, how you live." Victoria quickly scanned the apartment through Bruce's eyes. Computers, website sketches, design books, all confirmed her cover story as a web designer. The dangerous items were hidden in the bedroom, in a locked drawer. "Cozy," Bruce said, looking around. "Very you." They ordered Chinese food and ate sitting on the floor in front of the TV, like a normal couple. It was dangerously close to the normal life Victoria dreamed of, and that's why it was doomed to fail. The fatal mistake happened on the third Thursday in November. Bruce arrived at Victoria's earlier than usual. His meeting with a client had been canceled, and he decided to surprise her. Victoria was in the shower when he entered the apartment with the spare key she had given him a week ago, another breach of her own safety rules. "Vicky, it's me," Bruce called out as he walked into the living room. The sound of water from the shower could be heard coming from the bathroom. He smiled, imagining her reaction to his surprise visit. In 2 months of their relationship, he had felt something he hadn't felt in years: lightness, joy, the feeling that life was full of possibilities. Bruce decided to make coffee while Victoria was showering. In the kitchen, he opened several cabinets looking for coffee and accidentally dropped a jar of groats. The grains spilled onto the floor and some rolled under the refrigerator. Trying to retrieve them, Bruce lay down on the floor and saw an envelope that had fallen behind the refrigerator. At first, he wanted to just put the envelope back without looking at it, but there was a name on it that made him freeze. Victor Sanchez. Bruce turned the envelope over. It was a letter from an insurance company dated 2 months ago. Maybe it's a brother or relative, Bruce thought, but something made him look closer. The return address pointed to a medical clinic in Phoenix. Department of Gender Medicine. Bruce's heart began to beat faster. He knew he shouldn't read someone else's mail, but his hands seemed to act on their own. The letter was addressed to Victor Sanchez and contained a reminder about a scheduled examination as part of a hormone therapy program for transgender patients. Bruce's world began to crumble. He reread the letter twice, 3 times, hoping he had misunderstood. But the words were crystal clear. Victor Sanchez, male to female transition, hormone therapy, post-operative follow-up. "No," Bruce whispered. "No, this can't be true." The sound of water in the shower stopped. Bruce heard Victoria humming something to herself, and that simple, happy sound made him feel sick. The woman he loved, the woman he had sex with, the woman who made him feel alive was... Bruce couldn't even finish the thought. He had grown up in a conservative family, attended a Methodist church where such things were considered sinful and perverse. His entire upbringing, his entire belief system rebelled against what he had just learned. "Bruce, are you here?" Victoria's voice came from the bedroom. "Give me a minute, I'll be right out." Bruce mechanically shoved the letter into his pocket and tried to pull himself together. But his hands were shaking and his head was in chaos. How could she? How could she have been deceiving him all this time? Make him think he was a normal man dating a normal woman? Victoria came out of the bedroom in a bathrobe, her hair still damp from the shower. She smiled that warm, intimate smile that always made Bruce's heart skip a beat. But now that smile seemed like a mockery to him. "What a surprise," she said, coming up to him for a kiss. "I wasn't expecting you so early." Bruce pulled away. Victoria noticed the change in his behavior and frowned. "What's wrong? You look strange. Who is Victor Sanchez?" The question escaped Bruce before he had time to think. Victoria's face paled. She took a step back, and fear appeared in her eyes. The same fear she had been hiding behind masks and smiles for 2 months. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me." Bruce pulled the letter from his pocket. "I found this. Victor Sanchez, hormone therapy, male to female transition. That's you, isn't it? You're a man." The word man sounded like an insult. Victoria closed her eyes, and Bruce saw tears rolling down her cheeks. "I'm a woman," she said quietly. "I've always been a woman. I was just born in the wrong body." "Don't you dare!" Bruce shouted. "Don't you dare say that nonsense! You tricked me! You made me have sex with a—" He couldn't say it out loud. His upbringing wouldn't even allow him to think about what he was doing to a person who was born a man. In his value system, that made him know he couldn't even entertain the thought. "Bruce, please listen to me." Victoria took a step toward him, but he recoiled as if she were contagious. "Don't come near me. My God, I feel dirty. All this time, all these months. How could you do this to me?" "I didn't want to hurt you," Victoria cried openly now. "I just wanted to be who I am. I wanted someone to love me for who I am." "Who you are." Bruce laughed bitterly. "Who are you, Victoria? Or what's your real name? Victor? You even changed your name." "Victoria is my real name. I chose it when I started my transition. Victor died 7 years ago." "No." Bruce slammed his fist on the table. "Victor is alive. He's standing in front of me pretending to be a woman. Do you think plastic surgery and hormones will make you a real woman?" Every word Bruce said was like a knife to her heart. Victoria knew this moment would come someday, but she hoped that Bruce would be different, that he would be able to accept her for who she was. But she saw in his eyes the same disgust she had encountered all her life. "You're right," she said, wiping away her tears. "I lied to you. I should have told you from the beginning, but I was afraid of this reaction." "And you were right to be afraid, because it's disgusting. It's against nature, against God." Bruce paced the room like a caged animal. His world had collapsed in a matter of minutes. The woman who had made him feel like a man turned out to be. Once again, he couldn't finish his thought. "What will I tell Aubrey? What will I tell the children? If someone finds out?" Bruce stopped and looked at Victoria in horror. "What if one of my colleagues finds out? What if the church finds out? My reputation, my career, everything will be ruined." "No one will find out," Victoria said quickly. "I won't tell anyone. We'll just stop seeing each other. You can go on with your life as if nothing happened." "As if nothing happened?" Bruce looked at her incredulously. "Do you think I can forget? Do you think I can look in the mirror and not remember what I did with you?" Victoria saw something dark in his eyes, something dangerous. The self-preservation instinct that years of working as an escort had developed in her sounded the alarm. "Bruce, I understand that you're upset, but let's talk calmly." "Calmly?" He laughed hysterically. "My life is ruined and you're suggesting we talk calmly? Do you know what people think of men who do what I did?" "You didn't do anything wrong," Victoria said cautiously. "You were with a woman." "I am a woman, Bruce. It doesn't matter what I was born as." "It doesn't matter?" Bruce grabbed her by the shoulders and shook her. "How does it not matter? It's the most important thing. You made me a pervert. You made me be someone I'm not." Victoria was scared. She had seen this kind of rage in her clients' eyes before, when other girls told their stories. The rage of men who felt they had been deceived, who couldn't accept what they had learned about themselves. "Please let me go," she said, trying to free herself. "You're hurting me." Bruce let her go and recoiled as if he had awakened. He looked at his hands, then at the red marks on Victoria's shoulders. What had he done? He had never raised his hand to a woman. But she's not a woman, an inner voice reminded him. She's a liar. She ruined his life. I have to go, he said, heading for the door. I need to think. Bruce, wait. Victoria followed him, but he turned around with such fury in his eyes that she stopped. Don't follow me. Don't call me. Don't try to contact me. Understand? Victoria nodded, not trusting her voice. Bruce left, slamming the door so hard that the walls shook. Victoria collapsed onto the sofa and cried. She knew she had lost not only Bruce, but also her sense of security. Men who reacted the way Bruce didn't just leave. They came back. In the car, Bruce sat clenching the steering wheel until his knuckles hurt. He was shaking with rage, disgust, and something else he didn't want to admit. Because despite everything, part of him still remembered Victoria's tenderness, her laughter, the way she listened to him when he talked about his dreams. And that part made him hate himself even more. Bruce started the car and drove home to Aubrey, to the children, to his normal life. But he knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Victoria had destroyed not only his image of himself, but also his belief that the world was the way he thought it was. Saturday, November 28th, 11:47 p.m. Victoria Sanchez's apartment on Central Avenue was quiet. Rain drummed on the windows, and streetlights cast long shadows on the living room walls. Victoria sat on the sofa, hugging her knees, staring into space. It had been 3 days since Bruce left, and she couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. The doorbell made her jump. It was almost midnight. Victoria wasn't expecting anyone, but through the peephole she saw a familiar figure. The man had his back to her, but the silhouette was recognizable. "Who's there?" she asked without opening the door. "It's me. We need to talk." His voice sounded calm, almost conciliatory. Victoria hesitated. Part of her wanted to keep the door closed, but another part hoped that he had come to make things right. She opened the door. The man entered the apartment, and Victoria immediately sensed that something was wrong. He was too calm, too collected. His face was an impenetrable mask. "I've been thinking about us," he said as he walked into the living room. "About what we had." "And?" Victoria carefully closed the door, but didn't put the chain on. "And I realized I can't leave it like this. You ruined my life, Victoria, or whatever your real name is." His tone changed. It became cold, harsh. Victoria took a step back. "You made me think I was a normal man with a normal woman. And now I can't look in the mirror, I can't touch my wife, I can't live with what I know about myself." "You didn't do anything wrong," Victoria tried to say, but he interrupted her. "Shut up. Just shut up." He took a sharp step toward her. "Do you think you can just change your gender? Do you think surgery and hormones will make you a real woman?" Victoria backed away toward the kitchen. "Please leave. We agreed." "We didn't agree to anything. You lied to me from the beginning. You made me fall in love with an illusion." What happened next unfolded quickly. Victoria tried to reach the phone, but he grabbed her arm. There was pushing and shoving, shouting. Victoria tried to break free to get to the door, but he was stronger. At 11:52 p.m., it was over. Sunday, November 29th, 2:30 p.m. Mark Rodriguez climbed the stairs to Victoria's apartment with a bag of groceries in his hands. They had agreed to cook Sunday dinner together, a tradition they had kept up for 2 years. Victoria hadn't answered her phone since morning, which was strange, but Mark thought she had just overslept. The apartment door was ajar. "Vicky?" Mark called, pushing the door open. "Are you home?" The bag of groceries fell from his hands when he saw the body. Victoria was lying face down on the living room floor, wearing the same robe she had worn 3 days ago. A dark pool of blood spread around her head. The furniture had been moved, and broken picture frames lay scattered on the coffee table. "Oh God, no," Mark whispered, reaching for his phone with trembling hands. 911? I need the police. My girlfriend. I think she's dead. 3:15 p.m. Detective Sarah Mitchell arrived at the scene 45 minutes after the call. At 38, she was one of the best investigators in the Phoenix Police Department's Homicide Division. 12 years of service had taught her to read a crime scene like an open book. The apartment was already cordoned off with yellow tape. Forensic technicians were photographing evidence, and a medical examiner was examining the body. Mark Rodriguez sat on the steps in front of the building, his head in his hands. "What do we have?" Mitchell asked Sergeant Johnson, the first to arrive on the scene. Victoria Sanchez, 28 years old. Blunt force trauma to the head, presumably last night or early this morning. The body was discovered by the victim's friend, Mark Rodriguez. Mitchell put on her gloves and entered the apartment. The scene told a story of a struggle: an overturned chair, a broken vase, traces of blood on the wall. Victoria had fought back. "Murder weapon?" Mitchell asked. "Not yet. The killer may have taken it with them." Mitchell carefully examined the apartment. The computers on the desk were untouched, and expensive jewelry was in plain sight. Robbery was out of the question. "Detective," the forensic technician called out to her, "there's something interesting here." An envelope from an insurance company lay on the kitchen floor. It was addressed to Victor Sanchez. Mitchell raised her eyebrows. "Victor? But the victim's name is Victoria. Maybe a mistake by the mail carrier, or a relative." Mitchell examined the envelope more closely. The letter was from a gender medicine clinic. She was beginning to understand. "We need to talk to the person who found the body," she said. Mark Rodriguez looked devastated. His eyes were red from crying, and his hands wouldn't stop shaking. Mitchell sat down next to him on the steps. "Mr. Rodriguez, I'm Detective Mitchell. I'm sorry for your loss. I know this is difficult, but I need to ask you a few questions." Mark nodded without looking up. "How long did you know Miss Sanchez?" 4 years. We met at the bar where I work. We became friends." "Did she have any enemies? Problems with anyone?" Mark hesitated. Mitchell noticed. "Mr. Rodriguez, if you know anything that could help find Victoria's killer, you need to tell us." "She worked as an escort," Mark finally said. "Not all the time, just sometimes, for extra income." Mitchell nodded. That explained a lot. "Did she have any problems with clients?" "She was very careful. She only met with verified people in safe places. But lately, she had been upset about one client." "Can you elaborate?" "She fell in love with him. I know it sounds silly, but Vicky was very lonely. This man made her feel special. But then something went wrong." "What exactly?" Mark looked at the detective. "Vicky was born in a man's body. She transitioned 7 years ago. Most clients didn't know that, but this one did." Mitchell wrote down every word. The motive for the murder was becoming clearer. "What was his name?" "I don't know. She never used her clients' real names. She only said that he was married and worked in the auto business." 4:45 p.m. Mitchell returned to the station with the first pieces of evidence. On the table were items seized from Victoria's apartment: a phone, a laptop, a notebook with names and phone numbers in code. The technicians had already started working on the phone. The last call was on Thursday at 7:30 p.m. The number could not be identified. It was a disposable SIM card. "Detective," the technician addressed her. "There are messages on the phone from an unknown number. The last messages were 3 days ago." Mitchell looked through the messages. Most were neutral, arrangements for meetings, brief exchanges. But the last ones were different. "I miss you. When will we see each other?" "Tonight? I'll come to your place at 11. And then, 2 days later, we need to talk. I'll come late tonight." The last message was sent on Saturday at 11:35 p.m., 12 minutes before the estimated time of death. "Check this number," Mitchell ordered. "Find out who the SIM card is registered to, where it was purchased." 5:30 p.m. Mitchell was questioning Victoria's web design colleagues, a small studio in the city center where Victoria worked as a freelancer. Everyone described her as professional, quiet, friendly, but a little withdrawn. She never talked about her personal life, said Jennifer Clark, the studio owner. She came in, did her work, and left. Very talented, the clients loved her. Did she have any conflicts with any of her clients? No, she worked mainly with small businesses. She made websites for restaurants and shops. Nothing controversial. 6 p.m. A call from the technicians brought the first results. Detective, the SIM card was purchased with cash at a store on West Central 3 months ago. The surveillance cameras weren't working that day, but we have data on the phone's location. And? On the days of the alleged meetings with the victim, the phone was in the vicinity of expensive hotels, the Ritz-Carlton, Hyatt, Fairmont, and on the night of the murder, it was in the vicinity of the victim's apartment. Keep digging. I need to know everything about the owner of this number. 7:15 p.m. Mitchell was studying Victoria's notebook. The names were coded, but the technicians had already begun deciphering them. Most of the entries were from the last 2 years, but one stood out. BK with a note saying "Special" appeared 3 months ago and was mentioned regularly until last week. BK Mitchell muttered, "Our killer's initials?" She picked up the phone and called Mark Rodriguez. "Mr. Rodriguez, you said the problem customer worked in the auto business. Do you remember any more details?" Vicky said he was a manager at some dealership. Middle-aged, married, 2 kids. That's all I know. Mitchell hung up and turned to her partner, Detective Garcia. "Garcia, I need a list of all the car dealerships in Phoenix, and lists of managers with the initials BK. Let's start with the big companies. Do you think he's stupid enough to use his real initials? I think he's just a regular family man who killed someone for the first time. People like that make stupid mistakes." 8:30 p.m. The first search results were already on Mitchell's desk. 17 car dealerships in Phoenix and the suburbs. 43 managers with initials starting with BK Mitchell began narrowing down the list. Middle-aged family men. 31 candidates. "We'll start checking tomorrow," she told Garcia. Alibis for Saturday night, connections to escort services, financial transactions. One of these men killed Victoria Sanchez. She looked at the victim's photo on the board. A beautiful young woman with sad eyes. Someone took her life just because she was honest with herself about who she was. "We'll find him, Victoria," Mitchell promised quietly. "I promise." Monday, November 30th, 9 a.m. Detective Mitchell began the day by reviewing the list of 43 candidates. Methodical work is the foundation of any investigation. She and Detective Garcia divided the list in half and began calling car dealerships. By noon, the list had been narrowed down to 18 people. The rest were either too young or did not meet other criteria. Mitchell carefully studied the remaining candidates. Bruce Cole, 45 years old, sales manager at Phoenix Premium Motors, married for 18 years, 2 children, lives in the suburb of Scottsdale, impeccable reputation, member of the Rotary Club, parishioner of the Methodist Church. "Too perfect," Mitchell muttered. Experience had taught her that the most respectable facades often hid the darkest secrets. 1:30 p.m. A call from the technicians brought a breakthrough. "Detective, we analyzed the location data for that phone. On the night of the murder, it was in the vicinity of the victim's apartment from 11:20 p.m. to 12:15 a.m. But there's something else." "I'm listening." "We found a security camera on a neighboring building. The quality is poor, but you can see a man approaching the victim's house at 11:40 p.m. and leaving at 12:10 a.m. He's about 180 centimeters tall and has a stocky build." "Send me the recording." Mitchell watched the video several times. The man's face was indistinguishable, but his gait and silhouette were clear. She compared it to photos of suspects from social media. Bruce Cole fit all the criteria. 2:45 p.m. Mitchell arrived at Phoenix Premium Motors. The dealership was located in a modern glass and metal building. The spacious showroom was filled with shiny luxury cars. "Bruce Cole?" the manager asked. "Of course he's here. He's one of our best salesmen. What's this about?" "Routine check. Can I talk to him?" Bruce was called out of his office 5 minutes later. He was a man of medium height with graying hair and the confident gait of a successful businessman. But Mitchell noticed the tension in his movements when he saw the police badge. "Detective Mitchell, homicide," she introduced herself. "Can we talk in private?" Bruce's face paled, but he quickly regained his composure. "Of course. Let's go to the conference room." A small room with a table and 4 chairs. Mitchell sat down opposite Bruce and took out her notebook. "Mr. Cole, where were you on the night of Saturday to Sunday, November 28th to 29? "At home with my family. What happened?" "Can you be more specific? What time did you get home on Saturday?" Bruce paused, as if trying to remember. "Around 7 in the evening. We had dinner as a family, then watched a movie. I went to bed around 11. "Can your wife confirm that?" "Of course. But why?" "Are you familiar with the name Victoria Sanchez?" Mitchell watched Bruce's reaction closely. He blinked a little more frequently than usual, but his voice remained steady. "No, I don't recall." "What about Victor Sanchez?" This time the reaction was more noticeable. A slight tension in his facial muscles, a quick glance to the side. "No, I don't. Who is that?" Mitchell placed Victoria's photo on the table. "This woman was murdered on Saturday night. We know she had clients among car dealership managers." Bruce looked at the photo and shook his head. "Never seen her. And I don't see what this has to do with me." "Mr. Cole, do you have an additional cell phone?" "No, just my work and personal phones." A lie. Mitchell knew that, but she wasn't showing her hand yet. "Okay, I may contact you later for clarification. Thank you for your time." 4 p.m. Mitchell drove to the Cole family home in Scottsdale. A 2-story house in a quiet neighborhood, a well-kept lawn, 2 cars in the driveway. The image of the perfect American family. The door was opened by a woman in her 40s with tired eyes. Aubrey Cole looked as if she hadn't slept for several nights. "Mrs. Cole? Detective Mitchell. Can we talk about your husband?" Aubrey invited her into the living room. The room was tastefully furnished, but impersonal. Family photos on the mantelpiece showed happy moments that seemed far removed from the present. "Where was your husband on the evening of Saturday, November 28th? Aubrey fell silent. Mitchell saw the inner struggle on her face. "He said he was working late. He came home very late after I had gone to bed." "What time was that, approximately?" "I don't know exactly. I heard him come in, but I didn't look at the clock. Maybe around 1 in the morning." Bruce's alibi collapsed. Mitchell wrote down every word. "Mrs. Cole, have you noticed any changes in your husband's behavior lately?" Aubrey looked out the window, gathering her thoughts. "Bruce has been different these past few months. Distant. He often stayed late at work and was constantly checking his phone. I thought he was having an affair." "And what did you do about it?" "Nothing. We've been married for 18 years. We have children. I hoped it would pass." 5:30 p.m. Mitchell returned to the station with sufficient grounds for a search warrant. The judge signed the documents an hour later. 7 p.m. A team of forensic scientists searched the Coles house. Bruce was at the station being questioned. The children were with friends, and Aubrey sat in the kitchen watching strangers turn her life upside down. In the bedroom, behind the back wall of the closet, they found a plastic bag with a disposable phone and a blood-stained shirt. 8:15 p.m. Interrogation room at the police station. Bruce sat at a metal table with his lawyer beside him. Mitchell placed the bag of evidence on the table. "Mr. Cole, can you explain how these items ended up in your home?" Bruce looked at the evidence, and Mitchell saw him realize the game was over. "I want to tell the truth," he said quietly. His lawyer tried to stop him, but Bruce shook his head. "I was seeing her, Victoria, for 2 months. But I didn't know God. I didn't know who she really was." "Tell us what happened on Saturday." Bruce closed his eyes. "I came to talk. I couldn't live with myself knowing the truth. She was born a man. Do you understand?" She made me think I was normal. And what happened next? We had a fight. I didn't want to kill her. I just wanted her to understand what she had done to me. But she didn't understand. She said she had always been a woman. Mitchell wrote down every word. How did she die? I pushed her. She fell and hit her head on the coffee table. There was a lot of blood. I realized she was dead and panicked. Why didn't you call an ambulance? Bruce laughed bitterly. What would I have said? That I killed the person I loved because I found out the truth about their gender? My life would have been ruined. 9:30 p.m. Bruce was arrested on suspicion of murder. As he was led out of the station in handcuffs, Aubrey was standing at the entrance with the children. The teenager and the 14-year-old girl looked at their father with horror and incomprehension. "Dad?" whispered his daughter. Bruce couldn't look her in the eye. March 2025, Maricopa County Court. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The defense tried to prove that Bruce acted in the heat of passion, that Victoria had deceived him about her gender identity. The prosecutor objected. Victoria Sanchez was a woman. She lived as a woman, worked as a woman, loved as a woman. The fact that she was born in a male body did not give anyone the right to take her life. Mark Rodriguez testified about Victoria's character, her kindness, vulnerability, and desire for acceptance. She just wanted to be loved for who she was, he said through tears. Colleagues spoke of Victoria's professionalism, of how she helped small businesses establish an online presence. Aubrey Cole filed for divorce before the trial began. She and the children changed their last name and moved to another state. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. The verdict: guilty of second-degree murder. Judge Margaret Ryan read the sentence. Bruce Cole, the court sentences you to 25 years in prison without the possibility of parole. Your actions took the life of a young woman whose only fault was being honest with herself about who she was. Bruce accepted the sentence without emotion. In his final statement, he said, "I didn't want to kill her, but I can't say I'm sorry. She destroyed my life just as I destroyed hers." Detective Mitchell was present at the sentencing. As she left the courtroom, she stopped at a memorial stand set up by Victoria's friends. There were photos, flowers, and notes from people who knew her or simply sympathized with her. "Justice has been served," said Mark Rodriguez, approaching the detective. "Yes," Mitchell agreed, "but it won't bring her back." She looked at the photo of Victoria in the center of the memorial, a young woman with sad eyes who dreamed of acceptance and found death instead. "Rest in peace, Victoria," Mitchell whispered and walked toward the exit. The case was closed, but questions remained. How many more people suffer from misunderstanding and prejudice? How many tragedies could be prevented if society learned to accept differences? Victoria Sanchez became another statistic in the long list of victims of hate crimes. But her story reminded everyone of the price of intolerance and the importance of understanding that love has no boundaries and the right to be yourself is sacred.